Which one are you gonna?
132.
Huh?
132.
Koi Premanande. Om Agyana Timirandasya Kyanangena Salakaya Sakshur Militanyena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Karatrise Namaha. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj and purport of His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are at Madhya Lila chapter 4. Now we finished 4 and now we are at chapter 5, the activities of Sakshi Gopal. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of God, Brahmanya Deva, who appeared as Sakshi Gopal, to benefit the Brahmana. For 100 days he travelled through the country, walking on his own legs. Thus his activities are wonderful. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Walking and walking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his party finally arrived at Jayapur, on the river Vaitarani. There he saw the temple of Varahadev and offered his obeisances unto him. In the temple of Varahadev, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing and offered prayers. He passed that night in the temple. Afterwards, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the town of Kataka to see the temple of the witness Gopal. When he saw the deity of Gopal, he was very much pleased by his beauty. While there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing for some time, and being overwhelmed, he offered many prayers to Gopal. That night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in the temple of Gopal, and along with all the devotees. He heard the narration of the witness Gopal with great pleasure. Previously, when Nityananda Prabhu had toured all over India to see different places of pilgrimage, he also had come to see Sakshi Gopal at Kataka. At that time, Nityananda Prabhu had heard the story of Sakshi Gopal from the townspeople. He now recited this again, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration with great pleasure. Formerly, at Vidyanagar in South India, there were 2 Brahmanas who made a long tour to see different places of pilgrimage. First of all, they visited Gaya, then Kashi, then Prayag. Finally, with great pleasure, they came to Mathura. After reaching Mathura, they started visiting the different forests of Vrindavan and came to Govardhan Hill. They visited all 12 forests, and at the last came to the town of Vrindavan. In the village of Panchakrosi, Vrindavan, at the site where the Govinda temple is now situated, there was a great temple where gorgeous worship of Gopal was performed. After taking bath at different bathing places along the river Jamuna, such as Keshikat and Kaliyakat, the pilgrims visited the temple of Gopal. Afterwards, they took rest in that temple. The beauty of the Gopal deity stole away their minds, and feeling great happiness, they remained there for 2 or 4 days. One of the 2 Brahmanas was an old man, and the other was young. The young man was assisting the old man. Indeed, the young Brahmana always rendered service to the older one, and the old man was being very satisfied with his service. The older man told the younger, "You have rendered various types of service to me. You have assisted me in traveling to all these places of pilgrimage. Even my own son does not render such service. By your mercy, I did not become fatigued while on this tour. If I did not show you any respect, I would be ungrateful. Therefore, I promise to give you my daughter in charity." The younger Brahmana replied, "My dear sir, please hear me. You are saying something very unusual. Such a thing never happens. You are a most aristocratic family man, well educated and very rich. I am not at all aristocratic, and I am without a decent education and have no wealth. Sir, I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna." Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to Brahmanas, and when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. The older Brahmana replied, "My dear boy, do not doubt me. I will give you my daughter in charity. I have already decided this." The young Brahmana said, "You have a wife and sons, and you have a large circle of relatives and friends. Without the consent of all your friends and relatives, it is not possible to give me your daughter in charity. Just consider the story of Queen Rukmini and her father Bhishmaka. King Bhishmaka wanted to give his daughter Rukmini in charity to Krishna, but Rukmi, his eldest son, objected. Therefore, he could not carry out his decision. The elderly Brahmana said, "My daughter is my own property. If I choose to give my property to someone, who has the power to stop me? My dear boy, I will give my daughter to you in charity, and I will neglect the position of all others. Don't doubt me in this regard. Just accept my proposal." The younger Brahmana replied, "If you have decided to give me your daughter, then say so before the Gopal deity." Coming before Gopal, the elderly Brahmana said, "My dear Lord, please witness that I have given my daughter to this boy." Then the younger Brahmana addressed the deity, saying, "My dear Lord, you are my witness. I shall call for you to testify if it is necessary later on." After these talks, the two Brahmanas started for home. As usual, the young Brahmana accompanied the elder Brahmana, as if the older Brahmana were a guru, spiritual master, and rendered him service in various ways. After returning to Vidyanagar, each Brahmana went to his respective home. After some time, the elderly Brahmana became very anxious. He began to think, "I have given my word to a Brahmana in a holy place, and what I promised will certainly come to pass. I must now disclose this to my wife, sons, other relatives, and friends." Thus one day the elderly Brahmana called for a meeting of all his relatives and friends, and before them all he narrated what had taken place in front of Gopal. When those who belonged to the family circle heard the narration of the old Brahmana, they made exclamations showing their disappointment. They all requested that he not make such a proposal again. They unanimously agreed, "If you offer your daughter to a degraded family, your aristocracy will be lost. When people hear of this, they will make jokes and laugh at you. The elderly Brahmana said, "How can I undo the promise I made in a holy place while on pilgrimage? Whatever may happen, I must give him and my daughter in charity." The relatives unanimously said, "If you give your daughter to that boy, we shall give up all connection with you." Indeed, his wife and sons declared, "If such a thing happens, we shall take poison and die." The elderly Brahmana said, "If I do not give my daughter to the young Brahmana, he will call Sri Gopalaji as a witness. Thus he will take my daughter by force, and in that way my religious principles will become meaningless." His son replied, "The deity may be a witness, but he is in a distant country. How can he come to bear witness against you? Why are you so anxious over this? You do not have to flatly deny that you spoke such a thing. There is no need to make a false statement. Simply say that you do not remember what you said. If you simply say, 'I do not remember,' I shall take care of the rest. By argument I shall defeat the young Brahmana." When the elderly Brahmana heard this, his mind became very much agitated. Feeling helpless, he simply turned his attention to the lotus feet of Gopal. The elderly Brahmana prayed, "My dear Lord Gopal, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, and therefore I request you to please protect my religious principles from disturbance, and at the same time save my kinsman from dying." The next day, the elderly Brahmana was thinking deeply about this matter when the young Brahmana came to his house. The young Brahmana came to him and offered respectful obeisances. Then, very humbly folding his hand, he spoke as follows: "You have promised to give your daughter in charity to me. Now, you do not say anything. What is your conclusion?" After the young Brahmana submitted his statement, the elderly Brahmana remained silent. Taking this opportunity, his son immediately came out with a stick to strike the younger man. The son said, "Oh, you are most degraded. You want to marry my sister, just like a dwarf who wants to catch the moon." Seeing a stick in the hand of the son, the younger Brahmana fled. The next day, however, he gathered together all the people of the village. All the people of the village then called for the elderly Brahmana and brought him to their meeting place. The young Brahmana then began to speak before them as follows. This gentleman has promised to hand over his daughter to me, yet now he does not follow his promise. Please ask him about his behavior. All the people gathered there asked the elderly Brahmana, "If you have already promised to give him your daughter in charity, why are you not fulfilling your promise? You have given your word of home." The elderly Brahmana said, "My dear friends, please hear what I have to submit. I do not exactly remember making a promise like that." When the elderly Brahmana's son heard this, he took the opportunity to juggle some words. Becoming very impudent, he stood before the assembly and spoke as follows. While touring various holy places of pilgrimage, my father carried much money. Seeing the money, this rogue decided to take it away. There was no one besides this man with my father. Giving him an intoxicant known as dutura to eat, this rogue made my father mad. Having taken all my father's money, this rogue claimed that it was taken by some thief. Now he is claiming that my father has promised to give him his daughter in charity. All of you assembled here as gentlemen, please judge whether it is befitting to offer this poor Brahmana my father's daughter. Hearing all these statements, all the people gathered there became a little doubtful. They thought it quite possible that because of attraction for riches, one might give up his religious principles. At that time, the young Brahmana said, "My dear gentlemen, please hear. Just to gain victory in an argument, this man is lying." Being very satisfied with my service, this Brahmana said to me, of his own accord, "I promise to hand over my daughter to you." At that time, I forbade him to do this, telling him, "O best of the Brahmanas, I am not a fit husband for your daughter. Whereas you are a learned scholar, a rich man belonging to an aristocratic family, I am a poor man, uneducated, and with no claim to aristocracy." Still this Brahmana insisted. Again and again he asked me to accept his proposal, saying, If I have given you my daughter, please accept her." I then said, "Please hear, you are a learned Brahmana. Your wife, friends and relatives will never agree to this proposal. My dear sir, you will not be able to fulfill your promise. Your promise will be broken." Yet again and again the Brahmana emphasized his promise. "I have offered you my daughter. Do not hesitate. She is my daughter, and I shall give her to you. Who can forbid me?" At that time, I concentrated my mind and requested the Brahmana to make the promise before the Gopal deity. Then this gentleman said in front of the Gopal deity, "My dear Lord, please bear witness. I have offered my daughter to this Brahmana in charity." Accepting the Gopal deity as my witness, I then submitted the following at his lotus feet. "If this Brahmana later hesitate to give me his daughter, my dear Lord, I shall call on you as a witness. Please note this with care and attention. Thus I have called upon a great personality in this transition. I have asked the Supreme Godhead to be my witness. The entire world accepts the word of the personality of Godhead." Taking this opportunity, the elderly Brahmana immediately confirmed that this was really true. He said, "If Gopal personally comes here to serve as a witness, I shall surely give my daughter to the young Brahmana." The elderly Brahmana's son immediately confirmed this, saying, "Yes, this is a very nice settlement." The elderly Brahmana thought, "Since Lord Krishna is very merciful, he will certainly come to prove my statement." The atheist's son thought, "It is not possible for Gopal to come and bear witness." Thinking thus, the father and son agreed. The young Brahmana took this opportunity to speak. "Please write this down on paper in black and white, so that you may not again change your word of honor." All the assembled people got this statement down in black and white, and taking the signatures of agreement from both of them, served as the mediators. The young Brahmanas then said, "Will all you gentlemen present here please hear me? This elderly Brahmana is certainly truthful and is following religious principles. He had no desire to break his promise, but fearing that his kinsman would commit suicide, he deviated from the truth. By the pity of the elderly Brahmana, I shall call the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a witness. Thus I shall keep his truthful promise intact. Hearing the emphatic statement of the younger Brahmana, some atheists in the meeting began to cut jokes. However, someone elderly said, "After all, the Lord is merciful, and if he likes, he can come." After the meeting, the young Brahmana started for Vrindavan. Upon arriving there, he first offered his respectful obeisances to the deity, and then narrated everything in full detail. He said, "My lord, now you are the protector of Brahminical culture, and you are also very merciful. Therefore, kindly show your great mercy by protecting the religious principles of us two Brahmanas. My dear lord, I am not thinking to become happy by getting the daughter as a bride. I am simply thinking that the Brahmana has broken his promise, and that is giving me great pain." The young Brahmana continued, "My dear sir, you are very merciful, and you know everything. Therefore kindly be a witness in this case. A person who knows things as they are and still does not bear witness becomes involved in sinful activities." Lord Krishna replied, "My dear Brahmana, go back to your home and call a meeting of all the men. In that meeting, just try to remember me. I shall certainly appear there, and at the time I shall protect the honor of both your Brahmanas by bearing witness in the promise." The young Brahmana replied, "My dear sir, even if you appear there as a four-handed Vishnu deity, still none of those people will believe in your words. Only if you go there in this form of Gopal and speak the words from your beautiful face will your testimony be heard by all the people." Lord Krishna said, "I've never heard of a deity walking from one place to another." The Brahmana replied, "That is true, but how is it that you are speaking to me, although you are a deity?" "My dear Lord, you are not a statue, you are directly the son of Maharaj Nanda. Now for the sake of the old Brahmana, you can do something you have never done before." Sri Gopalji then smiled and said, "My dear Brahmana, just listen to me. I shall walk behind you, and in this way I shall go with you." The Lord continued, "Do not try to see me by turning around. As soon as you see me, I shall remain stationary in that very place. You will know that I am walking behind you by the sound of my ankle bells. Cook 1 kilo of rice daily and offer it. I shall eat that rice and follow behind you." The next day the Brahmana begged permission from Gopal and started for his country. Gopal followed him step by step. While Gopal followed the young Brahmana, the tinkling sound of his ankle bells could be heard. The Brahmana became very pleased, and he cooked first-class rice for Gopal to eat. The young Brahmana walked and walked in this way until he eventually arrived in his own country. When he neared his own village, he began to think as follows: "I have now come to my village, and I shall go to my home and tell all the people that the witness has arrived." Okay, we stop here for today. Jai Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila Chapter 5. The activities of Sachi Gopal Ki Jai. Jai Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. This Divine Grace Om Vishnupad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Sri Gurudev. Can you please? Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govindaram Sri Madhusudana. Giridhari Gopinatha Madana Mohana. Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Siva Sri Gora Bhakta
Jai Satpakar Shishi Guru Ganga Gandava Govinda Sundar Giri Hari Gopal Jyoti Jai Jai Shishi Guru Ganga Vada Giri Hari Jyoti Jai Okachapa Paramasa Paragajika Jai Vaya Asatasa Shishi Mishra Nirmala Chai Maharaj Jai Jai Okachapa Paramasa Paragajika Jai Vaya Asatasa Shishi Mishra Bhakti Sundar Govinda Deva Hari Maharaj Jai Okachapa Paramasa Paragajika Jai Vaya Asatasa Shishi Mishra Bhakti Jai Om Vishnu Param Sekha Bhakti Jai Asita Sasa Shishi Bhakti Jai Om Vishnu Pashunir Gauri Kishore Das Papi Ji Maharaj